War is not just fought on the battlefields. It's fought in business, in marriages, and especially in your own head. Sun Tzu's Art of War is not just a military text, but a manual for psychology. Strategy is the plan to win, but the mind is the terrain it plays out on. You can't separate the two because no matter what you're doing, no plan survives contact with reality unless it accurately accounts for how humans think, feel, and react. Once you understand that, the world stops feeling random. You start noticing patterns, seeing which strings are being pulled, and realizing that there's an equation underneath it all. Today, I'll show you the operating system running behind the scenes so you can stop getting played by forces you don't see and start taking control of them yourself. Principle 1: Perception. The mind doesn't respond to reality itself, it responds to perception. Every battle begins not with what is true, but with what people believe to be true. Raw information is always filtered through beliefs, experiences, and biases. That filtering bends the signal, and in the battlefield for influence, that distortion is not an accident, it's a strategy. You don't need to control the world, only how the world is seen. Whoever filters the signal frames the reality, and if you can shape what people see, hear, and believe, you shape the field they're forced to play on. That's why world powers fight over propaganda, why media fights for attention, and why businesses spend fortunes on branding and marketing. But your reputation works the same way. It's like a music label branding an artist. You don't just sell songs, you sell an identity, a myth, a story people choose to live inside. Professionals never leave that perception to chance, and neither should you. The way others see you determines which doors open, which rooms you're invited into, and which opportunities fall into your lap. Control the perception, and you control the game. On some level, you already know this. That's why you dress sharp for interviews and put your best foot forward on a first date. But here's the part most people miss. You have to observe and study people to know what to present. Not everyone interprets your actions the way you intend. Your words and behavior are always filtered through their frame, not yours. If you ignore that, you lose control of the message. Communication without awareness isn't communication at all. It's just noise. That's why signal control matters. Cut that noise to prevent distraction on your end and use framing to tilt the facts in your favor. Miss this step and every downstream move misfires because you're fighting illusions, not reality. But master it and you don't just react to the world, you decide which world others are forced to live in. And once you've shaped what people see, the next question is simple. What will actually move them? Principle 2: Incentive design and motivation. Behind every decision lies a deceptively simple truth that most people ignore. People move towards what feels rewarding and away from what feels costly. Not what's logical, not what's fair, but what is felt. Force can move people, but force is expensive. It drains your energy, burns your credibility, and breeds resistance. Align the incentives, and you don't have to push at all. They move themselves, believing it was their idea all along. So how do you learn what motivates people? Simple. Pull your head out of your ass and start paying attention. Most people are too busy trying to be heard instead of actually listening. But if you watch closely, people always reveal themselves. What they emphasize, what they avoid, where their emotions flare. Every action, even the ones you dislike, is meant to solve a problem for them. Find out what that problem is, and you hold the key. For some, it's status and ego, the need to feel important or respected. For others, it's safety, the instinct to avoid risk. Some are driven by belonging, a need to be accepted, while others crave to be seen and recognized. Pride pushes people to defend their identity, desires pull them towards opportunity, and the fear of loss typically outweighs the hope of gain. The mix shifts from person to person, but the pattern never changes. Once you know which lever matters most in the moment, you can arrange the table so it feels like their win while still serving your design. So ask yourself, in your last negotiation or argument, were you fighting for what you wanted or structuring the choice so it felt like what they wanted? That distinction is the line between pushing blindly and pulling with precision, and is a key component of power. And once you understand what really motivates people, the next step is presenting the doors for them to walk through. Incentive creates the pool, but architecture decides the path. Principle 3: Choice architecture. Options. Freedom is an illusion. People don't choose from infinite possibilities. They choose from the doors they believe are open to them. Structure the options, and the outcome is already decided. It's the magician's trick. You think you picked the card, but the choice was scripted from the beginning. And if a teenager with a deck of cards can pull that off, imagine what politicians and media outlets can do with nations and empires. This is the power of choice architecture. Positioning shapes what you see, and what you see shapes what you reach for. Defaults and constraints quietly guide behavior because most people will follow the path of least resistance without ever questioning who built it. That's why the framing of options matters more than the options themselves. Control how the options are perceived in a negotiation, and you often control the deal itself. So stop and look at your own life, the job you're in, the habits you have, the routines you follow. Did you really choose them, or were they just targets of opportunity? Most people wander through a maze that they didn't design, mistaking movement for freedom. The first step to power is recognizing the maze so you can stop being funneled by it and start reshaping it. The second step is applying this to how you communicate. When you're persuading someone, don't demand a yes or no. Present them with two or three options, all of which will lead to your desired outcome. A salesperson doesn't ask, "Do you want this car?" They assume the answer is yes and ask questions like, "Do you prefer the base model or the fully loaded version?" Even if the person says no, they're still starting to think in terms of which one they prefer. It might not be the right time to push, but that doesn't mean the work is wasted. By cycling through the principles we've already covered, reinforcing perception and aligning their incentives, you keep shaping the frame so that when the timing is right, the choice feels inevitable. Which leads to principle number 4, tempo and timing. Victory isn't just what you do, but when you do it. Control the cadence and you control the rhythm of the fight. Seize the initiative and the other side is forced to react instead of decide. Strike too early and you expose yourself. Strike too late and the moment is gone. Time is a force multiplier. The smallest advantage, seized in the right moment, becomes pivotal. The same advantage, mistimed, dissolves into nothing. Like when you wait too long to kiss a girl. You try later and it's just awkward. Timing is the hinge on which entire wars swing, and the line between checkmate and stalemate, between empire and collapse. The best way that I've found to develop timing is through patience. Since we tend to respond emotionally to decisions, the only way to gain control of our intellect is to tame the impulse to react. It's only by tempering your emotional responses that you begin to learn how easily your quote unquote intuition is hijacked. By slowing down, you break that pattern and regain autonomy. From there, you begin to see the windows opening and closing. Yes, you'll miss some opportunities, but that's part of being a student. You're experimenting, learning to tell the difference between noise and a real chance worth acting on. With practice, you'll know when to hold and when to strike. It's only after you get comfortable slowing down the pace that you'll have the discernment and clarity to recognize when it's appropriate to push. But when the time does come for action, be decisive and don't hesitate. When you were a kid, you learned not to ask your parents for anything when they were in a bad mood. The timing often mattered more than the request itself. As adults, this hasn't changed. The difference now is that you can do more than just wait. You can set the stage, shape the mood, and position yourself so that when the moment comes, the answer leans in your favor. And once you understand when to act, the next question is, with what force? Principle 5, leverage. Power isn't just about how much strength you have, but about where you apply it. Resources, skills, allies, money, and energy are only raw materials until you focus them on the right point. Leverage is about finding that point, the hinge where even the smallest effort moves the entire structure, like a rudder turning a massive ship. Cut off an enemy supply line and their entire army falls apart. Control a key resource and competitors scramble. Keep admirers in your DM and you maintain control through an exit strategy. I'm not recommending that, of course, just saying you're not insecure for calling it out when your partner does it because it's a strategy for control. Leverage works the same way everywhere. There's no need to beat down the door when you can just remove the hinges. Effort without leverage is wasted. Scattered energy that feels like work but accomplishes nothing. Leverage is what multiplies your force and influence. You build it by holding what others value, by making yourself harder to replace, and putting yourself in positions where people need to move towards you. The moment someone realizes they depend on what you control, you don't have to push any harder. They push themselves. Most people never get this. They confuse motion for progress, thinking volume and effort alone can create power. But real power is quiet. It waits, positions, and when the moment comes, it bends others without unnecessary force. This takes ground, but keeping it is another story. Control without stability slips through your fingers, which is where the final piece of the puzzle comes in. Principle 6, cohesion and consolidation. A quick win is worthless if you can't maintain it or turn it into the next victory. Everything drifts towards entropy, and without reinforcement, each gain dissolves back into chaos. What makes success endure isn't just effort, but the binding force of morale, identity, and trust. The sense that people belong to something greater, that their contributions matter, and that the story of victory belongs to them as well. Without this, no one rallies behind you for very long. They feel used and become resistant. That's why ethics and alliances matter so much, treating people fairly and providing real value in exchange for their cooperation. Manipulation can score points in the short term, but it bleeds the environment dry. People don't want to play with you anymore, and even if you win, it won't last. Dictators and tyrants are the clearest example of this. They can hold power for a while, but only by resorting to extreme measures to keep their grip from slipping. The same principle applies to your personal growth as well. If your progress isn't tied to a deeper identity or a vision you actually believe in and care about, it unravels. All the motivation and energy you poured into waking up early and grinding through resolutions means nothing if the foundation is superficial. So when you take a step back and look at all this, every move fits together into a single system. The equation is perception, motivation, options, timing, leverage, and cohesion. Together, they form the equation that drives every conflict, negotiation, relationship, and even the battles in your own head. Remove one or ignore it, and the whole system collapses. The questions are simple but absolute. What must they see or believe? What will move them right now? What doors need to open or close? When is the window open, and how do you act upon it? Where's the fulcrum, and what is the smallest hammer I can use? And of course, how do you make the results last? If a tactic doesn't strengthen at least one of these without weakening the others, it's just noise. Cut it. What remains is pure strategy. Sun Tzu said, "Supreme excellence is breaking resistance without fighting. Victory without conflict is the highest art." In relationships, it means choosing timing, tone, and setting so that unnecessary conflict collapses before it even starts. In personal discipline, it means designing routines and environments that remove resistance before willpower is tested. You're not battling yourself, you're shaping the battlefield. You're already at war every single day, with yourself and with others. Most people stumble into it blind, swinging wildly, and burning out, and then wondering why they keep losing ground. But when you master the system, you stop fighting battles and start deciding them. Go in blind and you lose. Use strategy wisely and you don't even need to fight because the war is over before it even begins. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.